All right. Is it working? Is it working? I have no idea. I'm going to do one more test and see. Hey, I think we're live. Guys, this is awesome. I'm excited to be here. Obviously using some new software, some new cameras, all kinds of stuff to make this work. So hopefully you can hear me. If you can, go ahead and post in the chat row where you're from, how you're doing, what you're excited about to be in this course. I don't know, make something up, but I'm just trying to make sure that we're still up and running and that it's working. So give me a second to check that while you post where you're from. We're just going to test a couple things here. Maybe. Sweet. I think we're up and running, guys. This is awesome. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive in. So first of all, thank you so much for tuning in. I know that a lot of you you're all over the place as far as what you're wanting to learn, where you're at, whether it's graphic design specifically or how to get a job, or the technical skill sets that are revolving around Photoshop specifically and the different tools. So I know we have a lot of ground to cover, but that's why I'm really excited you're here, because I want to treat this kind of like a classroom environment where you can ask questions and I can give you direct feedback that caters specifically to what you're dealing with. So what I'm going to do first is I've got a quick overview of what we're going to learn today, what we're going to talk about, and then I'll go ahead and jump into some student Q&A. It's going to be a ton of fun. Hopefully software doesn't shoot us in the foot today and it all works out. But anyway, it'll be fun. So what I'm going to do first, again, is just double check one more thing. And I think we're good to go. Let's check the chat roll. All right, guys. Awesome. So what we're going to do first is jump into our... All right. So today what I want to do is I'm going to talk about, I've got actually a couple things that I want to show you. The first is, let's jump into our overview here. One more click. There we go. All right. So I'm going to kick it off with the 5 things that I wish someone told me when I first started. So this is a special shout out to Daniela for this topic idea. Daniela had posted in that contact form when you first joined the course. I'd sent out a quick questionnaire to see what was important to you guys, what you wanted to learn, and how I can help serve you in this membership. So I know that right now most of you are just kicking the tires, trying to see if this is a good fit for you. But really, it is a good fit, because whatever you want to learn, ask me, and I'm going to try and cater everything we do to help get you up and running with your specific needs and to see how that's going. So that being said, I want to dive in and I'll tell you 5 things that I wish someone told me when I first started that maybe would have saved me a lot of time and maybe even some headache. Also, I want to talk about a salary guide. So how much money can you actually make as a creative? And I say creative instead of graphic designer because I feel like to kind of lump it into the bigger pool of a quote creative will give you a lot more options in the future. If you just say, well, I'm a graphic designer, it's really going to niche you down, which is good in some ways, but in other ways it can limit your career. So I want to talk specifically about the greater career as a creative. That could be photography, that could be video editing, that could be graphic design, print design, specifically web design, specifically user, UX, UI design, there's all kinds of stuff. And then as you progress through your career, kind of like I have, I'm not always the one in the chair pushing pixels around. As a creative director, a lot of times my job is to make sure that my team is on point and doing what they need to be doing as well. So what we'll do, we'll talk about how much money you can make, kind of show you where you can, on the one hand, if money's important to you and you got to survive, right? We'll show you what the most in-demand jobs are. We're also going to talk about the ones that maybe, are the most immediately available to you to get you up and running so you can start really diving into this. I'm also going to talk about how I chose my salary when I started as a freelancer. So one question that Neil asked earlier was trying to figure out the path, whether you go as a freelancer or go towards getting a career where you're actually working for somebody else. And I wanted the career actually badly. I wanted to work in a studio and to have that experience. But, for me, the way it went was it was at the peak of the economy crashing basically back in 2008. And nobody was hiring. So I basically had to figure it out as a freelancer. So I'll talk more about that later. And then we're going to talk about getting a job and actually finding work, for you in mind, and some good approaches to that. Then last, we're going to dive in. I've got a handful of student questions I see coming in. So I'll go and at the very end, we'll save those for later. So as you have questions, just go ahead and post them in that Facebook comments below or in the chat roll beside the video. All right. So let me just double check one more time and just make sure that we've got this thing going. We're in good shape. And just make sure that we've got this thing going. We're in good shape. Perfect. Okay, so then we're going to mute this real quick. And just make sure that we've got this thing going. We're in good shape. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. First things first, 5 things I wish someone told me when I first started my career. Now, a lot of these points could be pretty universal, whether you are going into graphic design or you want to become a welder or something totally random. But here they are in no particular order. First things first, connections, not grades, are key to success. So what I mean by that is that, well, just what it says, connections, not grades, are key to success. I would say that of all the jobs that I had, the ones that I actually got hired for, I would say over 90% were because I knew somebody. And I got that job before it was even posted online. There were a couple jobs that I did have that I did the whole process with the resume and everything else, but it was those connections that got me where I'm at today. The grades, nobody cares about. They get you out of college if you're in college now and you need to pass. But the worst saying that I heard, and I'm glad I heard it after I was done with school, is that D's get degrees. And so I'm not saying be a horrible student. Obviously, there are some doors that will open up to you as you become, excellent in your craft and as you decide to do well in school. But what I'm trying to say is that don't hang too much on that alone. Make sure that you're meeting people. Some of the best connections I had were outside of the classroom when I was actually in college. And even today, I go out of my way to meet as many people as I can and keep in touch with them, because that's everything. No matter what you're doing, no matter what career path you're in, or even just in life, if you run into problems, whether it's financial or health or just whatever, just doing life together as a designer, especially when you tend to be isolated, working from a desk. In this case, when I'm here by myself trying to get things done, it can be difficult without those connections to kind of help you along when you're having a bad day, need to talk to somebody or things like that. So it really does encompass everything. And that's one thing that I wish I would have leaned into earlier, was just having those connections. So let's go ahead and jump into our next point here. It's a small world, be nice. All right, so kind of self-explanatory, but again, especially where I live in Montana, very, very small town. Everybody kind of knows everybody. And not that you wouldn't be mean to people, but you got to be really conscious about those bridges you might, quote, burn, or the way you leave things. I have a lot of relationships now that I'm a little bit older and further along with my career that, I thought I would never see again. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, 6, 7, 8 years later, all of a sudden, either we're looking to do business again, or you run into them in another, maybe they've got a different job. And I should have maybe planned ahead and had some case point examples. But the point is, it's a small world, be nice. Back to those connections, right? Make sure that every touch point, everything that you do, builds those connections, and you'll go a long ways with that. So the next point is, let's bring it up here. Bonus tip. Okay, this is where over 90% of my business comes from referrals and cold calls. So what I mean by that is some of the questions actually we'll get to later. One of them was, how to get your first client and how to get a job, that came from Lewis. And honestly, again, like no matter how much I tried, whether it was a cold call or, posting on Craigslist or putting ads out or whatever, the most dependable, I guess, job source for me was referrals. So what I mean by that is it's a lot easier for somebody else to say, hey, go check out Derrick. He's awesome. He can do whatever you need, as long as they know what you do, versus me going to say, hey guys, I'm awesome. Check me out. Trying to pat myself on the back and trying to convince somebody that they should work with me. So having those warm leads are really important. So that's again, where 90% of my business comes from. So let's jump back into, all right. The next point is Every interaction builds your brand. So especially if you want to freelance, even with today with Instagram and everything else that's out there, I really believe that your personal brand is very important. Even if you get a desk job, even if you work for somebody else, it's going to be what opens those doors to other things. So back to the main point under number 2, it's a small world, be nice. Everything you do will build your personal brand. So definitely pay attention to that. The next point is continue self-education outside of school. So this is something that I'm really good at now. I haven't always been really good at this. And now I spend a ton of money every month and a ton of time. I've got a personal development roadmap basically that I've set up for myself. So I don't rely on professors or teachers to tell me what to learn. I go through and figure out what's important for my career to be better, whether it's as whether it's an employee or a freelancer or as a husband, as a father, or whatever it is that I want to learn about, how to raise my kids, things like that. There's books, there's people who have gone before you who've written about everything you can imagine. So I wish that, after college, there was a couple of years where I still learned a lot. I still studied a lot from graphic design. I still, pressed into tutorial sites like lynda.com, and there's, a handful of other ones, but I wish I would have done that even through college, even while I was already going to school for something else. I wish I would have made it a point to prepare my own education for where I wanted to end up in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So that would be something that I wish I would have done earlier, is continued self-education outside of school. All right, the next point, it doesn't have to be perfect. So for me, especially with this live broadcast, I already wanted to restart this thing like 10 times now, because it's not totally perfect. Like, I want to be able to look at the camera and switch to my, my bullet points and have everything good. And the start was a little rough because, whatever, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to solve that problem. So hopefully me talking to you right now, we're going to work together through some things. I'm going to solve some problems for you, or at least help, guide you in the right direction. When it comes to your client, same thing. Like, it doesn't have to be an award-winning design, which that in itself is funny. I'm going to go on a tangent here in just a second. So, I wanted to say growing up, but in the earlier years of my career, it was always, I'd see these other design agencies and they'd say award-winning design, or these freelancers, award-winning designer. Well, you know what? I could send you an award. I could make something up, say, hey, here's an award. You won the, best flyer award for 2019. And, all of a sudden you could put that on your wall and you could say award-winning design. Right? So not that it doesn't mean anything. There are some prestigious awards. If I'm being 100% honest, I can't think of any awards I've done. But not that it doesn't matter. I mean, they'd be cool to have, but that hasn't slowed down my career at all. So, back to, it doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to solve the client's problem. Work with excellence. But if you work towards perfection, it will give you an excuse to not finish. And if you don't finish your tasks, you can't send those invoices. If you don't send those invoices, you don't get paid. Or if you finish it late, maybe you have to give them a discount, or they don't pay you at all. So it's really, really important that you just get your work done and get it done on time. Okay. So that's something I wish I would have done a better job earlier in my career. The next point is, this too shall pass. So pay attention to the seasons in life, right? So, and if for those of you who maybe are older coming through this broadcast, even those who are younger, you can think back to even your childhood days, and you can think about the different seasons in life, right? So right now, just think about where you're at. There might be some hardships you're going through. There might be some things that are either uncomfortable or that you're trying to figure out and you're not quite there yet. Just realize that this is a journey, right? It's not a destination. You'll never be there, but you will be passing through different phases and different seasons. So one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, talked about how, don't try to change the seasons. That'd be stupid. That'd be foolish. Like, don't try to put, winter right after summer and skip fall. It doesn't work that way. And if you try to work that way, you'll just be frustrated, right? So pay attention to where you're at right now. If you're at the very beginning of things and, maybe you're frustrated that you're not like this award-winning designer, or that you haven't landed work yet. Like, don't try to force it. If you just signed up for this course this first month and you just turned on Photoshop for the first time, don't put so much pressure on yourself to be like, why haven't I had a paying gig yet? Like, don't worry about that yet. Just continue to refine your craft. Worry about the day-to-day. If you have questions, ask me, but pay attention to those seasons in life. And by saying like, this too shall pass, what I mean is that there's going to be ups and downs, right? But you're always going to come out the other side. There was times in our career where we would have, 5, 6, 7 invoices billed out to clients who usually would pay on time, and none of them paid on time. Maybe it was like $10,000 owing, and we couldn't pay our bills because for whatever reason, nobody decided to mail their checks in on time, right? That was a crappy season. And that might happen. That basically expect it, right? Try to give yourself as much of a buffer as you can, but expect that clients aren't always going to pay on time. They just don't. I mean, I don't know about you, but do you always pay your bills on time? Sometimes stuff happens. You get sick or, whatever, but just be aware of it. Be aware of the seasons and know that this too shall pass. You'll come through on the other side and you're going to be okay. All right, so next point. Let's see what we've got next on tap here. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the Creative Salary Guide. And so there's a company that I worked with, and called the Creative Group, but now they've rebranded. But the point is, every year they go through and they create a salary guide. So what I want to show you real quick is where to find this thing. So and I'll put the links in this video in the replay in your members area. But for now, if you go to roberthalf.com/salary-guide, you can put in your name and get the report, or just download the file. I'll put it there for you also. But you'll get this 2019 salary guide. So let me jump over here where I already downloaded it. What's really cool about this is, you don't have to work in a vacuum. You don't have to think about or try and figure out what to charge. Somebody else has already gone before you and they figured it out. So that being said, what's really eye-opening is as you go through this document, and again, make sure you download it and check it out. Let me get back over here in the right window. How you guys doing? I don't even know. I've been on a roll. I've been cranking away here. I hope you guys can see it. I hope you get some interaction in the chat roll. But for today, I'm just going to kind of plow through this a little bit in case the recording is all we have to go on. I don't want to be too crazy at the end of this thing. But anyway, back to what we were doing. All right, so this creative guide has a lot of really, really, really good information for you guys. Some of it's written on behalf of like an employer, so it might not make sense to you. But if you can see what an employer is looking for, that'll help you as well. So what I want to show you real quick. So how to use the salary guide table. So they've got the lowest percentile, the 25th lowest percentile. So basically, this would be probably a lot of you where you're still developing your skills, and or you might be looking for a job that's got low competition for talent. Okay, well, let me just read this. The job may be in a market with low competition for talent or in a smaller, less complex organization. Okay, so that's going to be this number here. If we look at the position as a graphic designer, we can see the lower percent base salary average is about $42,000 annually. Okay, 50% or 50th percentile. Okay, midpoint, right? So you're kind of halfway through. You've got your necessary skills to get the job done, right? So kind of medium complexity, that's going to be this number here. It's $55,000 annually, okay? We've got the higher end starting salaries, which require a strong skill set and more experience than most candidates. And then 95th percentile. So these are candidates with an advanced level of experience and certifications, yada, yada. You get the drill. So that's going to be this number up here, okay? So let's go ahead and scroll through and look at some of these. And the reason why I want to show you this comes back to the basically getting a job and finding work and kind of helping you see what's possible beyond just the graphic designer role, but what's possible in the creative arts industry. So here's an example. So I'm actually, this is a great sample. So I'm a creative director, and because of where I live, even though I have a lot of experience, I'm not up at this number at all. Actually, my last job that I had in Missoula was at about $98,000 a year. So awesome salary, super cool. But when I look at this, it's actually a little depressing because I know I've got enough experience to probably land one of these jobs, but that's part of, basically the geography of your skill set. On the one hand, it's awesome if you can work remote and work as so here's a graphic designer, right? So maybe you get to work remote for a place like out of New York or somewhere, some big city that really values that skill set, but you live in a place where your expenses are really low. So that's a fun game to play too, if you can. Otherwise, you're kind of at the mercy of the geography, and we'll look at that here in a second. So what I want to really point out to you though, so we've got graphic designer skills. So that's going to be like producing graphics, flyers, posters, things that you're learning in my class using Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. But there's a lot of other skill sets too that also pay really well. If we look at this spreadsheet, you got an art director. If we look at the top end, if you're at your A game, these are incredible salaries, right? But even something like this, like a 3D animator. So you're going to do some graphic design, but you're also going to be animating, and they're going to add more skill set to that. So it's not just in Photoshop every single day, but look at the potential for that. That's incredible, right? Now, obviously this is best case scenario. This is somebody who's really amazing at what they do. But even if you down here, this 57,000 a year rate, even if you trip on it, right? Even if you're terrible, and you get, let's say, half of that, how cool though, that you can start creating a career that's going to help you provide for yourself, provide for your family, all those kinds of things. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the next. So here's some more examples. We've got package designer, environmental designer. So a package designer is somebody who actually designs packaging. Think like, if you go to a liquor store, well, some of you are probably a little young, but the brands like liquor stores and some of those things, they have a bigger budget and they do some really amazing packaging. But even on the low end of that, think like Starbucks, right? You got the coffee beans and how they package that. Go to any sports store. I like to go walk around. There's a store here called Sportsman Ski House. They sell bikes and skis and outdoor stuff, right? And everything in there that has to be packaged to be sold. And there's somebody who actually designs that. So that's what that role would be. An environmental designer is somebody who, it depends, but that kind of bleeds over into infographics and environmental design, where you're designing wayfinding and showing people how to actually move through a building, designing signage and things like that. So, and then this one I want to talk about real quick. So Neil had a question at the beginning of this. He had asked, one of the things he wanted to learn about was photo manipulation. How is it used in the industry and how much work can you find? So I'm assuming for photo manipulation, maybe you're talking more about composite images and, some of the more truly Photoshop type of stuff you would see. But even at a base level, like a photo retoucher, somebody who's actually going through and whether it's cleaning up things in photos for products. So maybe you're posting a t-shirt on an e-commerce website, but the t-shirt has a little bit of fuzz and you got to retouch it a little bit, or maybe the colors aren't quite right, or you got to touch up the model a little bit. I'm not talking about making them look skinnier or taking wrinkles away, but just simple things. Maybe there's a blemish on the face, like that day they had a bad makeup day and had a pimple or something. I don't know. But the point is, as a photo retoucher, even here, there's obviously enough of a marketplace for it, is what I'm trying to say, because if you look at the numbers here, there's definitely room to grow. And the fact that it's even listed up here tells you that there is indeed a true need in the marketplace for somebody who can do photo retouching or even the true photo manipulation stuff, right? So I don't need to go through and look at every other one of these, but the one thing I do want to touch base on real quick before we move on is that I would suggest, I'm going to do my best to teach you guys everything that I can. Obviously, I want to get you up and running, but I would say the number one skills, because that doesn't make sense, but the most important skills would be Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. That's a given, right? But then also if you could tack on HTML and CSS, you'd be in a really, really good spot. A lot of employers are looking for those type of skills. And then if we push that one degree further, so if we have a UI designer, user interface, you're basically like a graphic designer, but you're specific to the user interface online or on an app. And so you're using a majority of the same skill set, but man, look at how much more you can command, even at a base level salary. It's just worth more to the marketplace, and people are having a hard time finding, by people I mean employers, are having a hard time finding skilled UI and UX designers who can do that work. So look at these numbers and you'll see what's in high demand and where you want to move towards. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make sure that I get this link to this file posted in this video after we repost in your membership area. I don't need to go through the rest of it, but you can look at this. It's really, really helpful. So what I want to talk about now is actually how I chose my freelance salary. And if you have any questions, now's a great time to start posting those in the feed, as well as in the chat roll if you can see me, if you can hear me. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk about how I chose my freelance salary. So Back when I first got started, let me switch views here. All right. So back when I first got started in the industry, oh man, when was this? This was like 2007, 2008. And let's say I graduated college in 2007. So it was in between. It was after graduating, and I wanted a job desperately. I was looking for that in-house design agency type of role at a true design agency that had multiple clients. I wanted it, but there just wasn't much available at the time. Part of that was because where I had interned, they were hiring, but that was in a different city. We moved back to Montana, to be closer to family. And so it was like sink or swim, man. We had a baby on the way, and I had to make money somehow. So I just started doing work, and that's going to lead into actually